8 years ago, I was in an introductory archaeology class when I first realized, oh, I can advocate for my learning. My friend and I had been reflecting on how lost we felt during small group discussions. We'd been told to talk about our readings, but there were always multiple. Where do we start? I approached my professor after class one day and I said, I've noticed my groups and I are always unsure of where to focus when we discuss the readings. Is it possible for you to give us some guiding questions so we can make the best use of our time? I really wasn't sure what to expect. I was wildly nervous. But he said, oh, of course. I hadn't thought of that. Sure enough, in the next class, we had a little more structure and a much more productive group discussion. And I would not have had the confidence to do that if I hadn't already been working in partnerships with professors on campus. For the last decade, international interest has been rapidly growing in the practice of student-faculty partnerships in teaching and learning in higher education. The field of students as partners, as it has been referred to, describes the process of partnering with undergraduate or graduate students as colleagues to call attention to members of higher education who are traditionally considered the recipients of knowledge rather than the producers of it.
I think the word partner is important in that definition because I think it's really about a space of co-creation and acknowledging that we might not all be contributing in the same ways and we don't have the same expertise or experiences, but we can still view ourselves as partners who are bringing equally important things to the project.
There's this incredible awareness of the other person and sort of calibration all the time, and you're really trying super hard to always stay connected to them.
Situating undergraduate and graduate students as colleagues can happen in many ways.
We went from being in a professor-student relationship exclusively to also having a relationship as actual partners in a research project.
I was really interested in finding a way to feel more connected to the academic life on campus. So my first partnership was with a newer faculty member, and we met weekly as well to talk about what I was seeing in the class, what she was noticing, to think about changes she might make or things she might try to perpetuate things that she thought were going really well.
Partnership doesn't have to be just between faculty and students. I think it can be very empowering when it's between students, and particularly students from different backgrounds.
Partnering with students is a fundamental rethinking of how we do higher education.
It feels very foreign and in some ways wrong because it's so different to conventional models of higher education and so against traditional rhetorics of authority.
I want to say partnership is an emotional thing. In partnerships, you go through tons of resistance, but we figure out the resilience within that. We still find ways to have a middle ground that is fair to both of us, and I think that's what's important.
The implications of such work is tremendous. Over the last several years, threads of research have emerged on how partnerships can support student equity broadly, epistemic justice, faculty identity, and gender equity. The topic of gender equity is especially interesting because of the current state of higher education globally and in the US in particular. While women have fully closed the gap in college enrollment, they have yet to equally attain faculty positions at universities, and their share of representation shrinks even more at higher levels of academic leadership.
At least in the US, women are really socialized to not take up a lot of space physically or verbally in a conversation, even if there is kind of a numerical majority. That leads to, even if you have a classroom that is, 9 women and 3 men, you might have the 3 men all, talk during class multiple times and only 2 of the women do. That's been something that I saw in my own classrooms. It's something that I saw as a student partner in the classroom that I was paying attention to for both of my faculty partners, was the kind of gender dynamic in the class.
Gender was the first roadblock I had to experience. The guy was there, he had a certain masculinity towards him, he had a certain presence towards his co-partner who was a female, but she had years of experience. Like, I would have never thought in a million years there was any form of insecurities had she not shared that with me. So it just made me realize the amount of burden women carry with them as they encounter different spaces. You still go through the misconceptions about what it is to be a woman in education.
This difference has been exacerbated by the global pandemic. In one study of STEM faculty, researchers found the pandemic corresponded to a significant decrease in women's first authored and co-authored article submissions. Men's productivity remained the same. Faculty with children at home, especially those under 5, reported a decrease in productivity overall, but women reported spending a significantly higher proportion of time caring for children compared to men in the study. The authors suggest women may be disproportionately impacted by childcare responsibilities in ways that affect research productivity, which in turn affects tenure.
I was very acutely aware of the challenges of being a woman academic and balancing your career with your eventual sort of family life. I think about it all the time, and I think about, what were the points where I kind of made this decision that led me here. And I don't think other people think about that, especially men. They don't think about, what you might be giving up or what you might be delaying as a result of the choices you make.
There are, of course, larger structural issues that contribute to and exacerbate gender inequities in higher education. But partnerships between students and instructors do offer some interventions.
So I think there's always going to be that unconscious stereotype thread that we put in ourselves. There's doubts, which is natural, but I do think over time it can definitely be addressed in a way that's more productive and more fulfilling and empowering for women over time.
For students, partnerships can serve as spaces to recognize and practice using their agency.
We were able to contribute to the academic literature in a way that, most students aren't, and it felt really empowering to be able to do that.
And that's exactly why I ended up doing as many things as I did, because I was in this space to feel empowered.
The project didn't exist, and it came out of a conversation that we had and kind of just decided together to do some work about this idea of gender in partnership. And that was really impactful and positive for me to be able to actually come up with the project or to realize also this idea of, we can just do this.
For instructors, partnerships can offer sustaining and formative relationships in academia. As Dr. Ann Bruder reflects, both of my experiences in partnership share this quality: ceding control and leaping into a space with an unpredictable outcome. A trusting partnership, though, makes this kind of vulnerability far less unnerving, because there's an established relationship in which to process the peaks and valleys of any given event, assignment, or day in the course. In ceding a measure of authority, my students, in turn, incline towards authorizing themselves to direct their own learning.